Welcome to the Awaken on Purpose podcast, where each week you'll receive insight, inspiration, and advice for living your purpose and making an impact as a conscious leader. You'll also hear inspirational stories of other conscious leaders who are living and leading from a place of mission, vision, and purpose. Get ready to be enlightened, empowered, and transformed with me, your host, Jennifer Skor. I'm really excited to welcome as a guest to the show today, Judi Fox. She has generated over 5 million views on LinkedIn in the last 2 years and is featured in Inc. magazine, CEO magazine, Vid Summit, Video Marketing World, People of Video, Top 100 Marketing Podcasts, and more. With over 18 years experience in business development and sales, Judi Fox developed the LinkedIn Business Accelerator Method. Clients are implementing this LinkedIn method to achieve more business and over 1 million content views in 90 days with press features in Forbes, BBC News, and Thrive Global. Welcome, Judi. I'm so excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
You're welcome. So let's jump right in. I would love for you to share more about what inspired you to actually do the work you're doing today, because your background is really interesting.
So I think what really pushed me to do literally the work I'm doing as of today is knowing that what I was doing for myself, what I was doing for other companies when I was working for Fortune 500 companies in business development, that seller doer role that I was doing in consulting, being able to launch my own environmental consulting business before I did all this. I had so many people reach kind of a apex or a crux of asking me, wait, how did you do it? How are you running your own consulting business? How are you networking on LinkedIn to actually get business? How are you making content on LinkedIn that gets this many views? So with that influx of kind of demand or questions, it kind of created itself. I was challenged by hiring a coach, which I think it's smart to, if you're going to fast forward yourself in any area of life, books, podcasts, obviously listening to this one, you can fast forward yourself. So what I did was hired a coach, and she helped me really kind of get out of my own, maybe imposter syndrome, or I just thought to myself, I had to do it. I had jobs that required me to do business development and sales. I had to learn how to network on LinkedIn to literally have my job. So I think when you sit down and finally reverse what you know how to do, that's where some of the magic comes in. And that was what ended up happening. I reverse engineered and created the LinkedIn Business Accelerator Method from that time. I probably spent 3 or 4 months really sitting down and dissecting what I did.
I love what you said, because, oftentimes the very thing that we're meant to do, right? It's already something that we know how to do, that, combined with a natural gift that we have. I wanted just to touch on that, because there are so many people in the world who feel like they have to shove themselves into a certain box, right? Or they have to have a certain job or do certain work to be successful. But we can be successful, doing what we're good at and what we naturally love.
Yeah, I think it's been a lot of years coming, mainly because I was raised in the 80s, born in the 70s, raised in the 80s into the 90s. And mainly I was told, you get a job, you have a degree that tells you what your job is. And I think there's a lot of mindset out there that is in that space. I mean, I'm in my mid 40s. So that combined with not understanding that your zone of genius is sometimes the thing that you just take for granted, the thing that comes so easy to you that if you sat down and just, it's natural. It's like some people just naturally are amazing runners, and there's all these things that people are just so good at, but also they've worked really hard at. But when they look back, it's hard for them to see their own genius. And so sometimes you really have to have somebody reflect back to you what you naturally see as really easy to do. And they have to explain to you that actually what you're doing is so freaking hard for other people. And if you could teach other people how to do what you're doing so easily, that would be genius. And that's where it all happens. That's where the magic happens.
Yeah, that is so true, that we often view our own gifts as just kind of being common sense.
Mm-hmm. And we need other people to reflect that back to us. I think I heard one time, and I could be getting it wrong, there's a woman named Erin Fell, and I don't want to pronounce her name wrong, but I'm trying. And she was on a live stream, and I heard it, and she said it's called the Solomon complex, where we cannot, literally in our brains, we have a hard time seeing ourselves. So that's why I've heard it referred to as you're standing on the sun and you're shining so brightly as a human being that when you look back at the sun, you can't see yourself. You have to squint, and you just can't see yourself. And there's something out there psychologically in our brains that actually, it's a good mechanism for us to have, so we don't then become, I don't know what the word is, but we actually have the ability to have empathy and compassion and be connected to other people. Because maybe if we turned around and could see ourselves all the time shining so brightly, that might create a weird imbalance or something. But we need each other. We really do need each other.
We really, really do. And it, makes all the difference to surround ourselves with others who are like-minded as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard the concept of you're inside an echo chamber, or you're not getting diverse input. And I think there's a balance where, to be honest, we hear all the time, you are the 5 people you spend the most time with. So when you say it like that, but then you challenge people to constantly go out and surround themselves with hundreds and millions of people and all their diverse viewpoints, I think it's micro. I'd rather pick 5 to 10 people who I'm very, very close with to let them in my inner circle. And yes, you can still get diverse perspectives, but it really does matter who you spend the most time with. And even just consuming, who you read all their books, whose podcasts you listen to, that's still spending the most time with.
Oh, I agree completely. I've also found, I'd love to hear your input on this. I've also found that as a leader, that sometimes people will calibrate to you as well. Like, just on a personal note, to use an example, my husband, okay?
Okay, yeah.
Each one of us is on our own growth journey, yet I find that sometimes he will naturally pick up on what I'm doing.
Yeah, again, I don't know how all the microcosms or impacts that we do in the world, but I feel like that saying, when you walk into the room, you could cut the tension with a knife, or you can feel things. I really think we can gut instinctual feel things. So when we spend time with people, we intuitively pick up on things, micro expressions, hormones. I mean, I don't even know all the ways, like we talk about it in animals, but it's happening also in humans, like how we all interact with each other, how we smell. I mean, there's so many things happening that I can't even imagine. One of my favorite books was, I think it's called Every Body Speaks. It's written by an FBI agent, and it was all about the micro expressions. And I found that book to be really fascinating.
Yeah, I would think that would be really fascinating as well. And there are terms, for what you're referencing. For example, when you talked about, how people have those gut feelings, or they are tuned in to kind of, someone else's emotions. It's called Clairsentience, which is actually clear feeling, like everybody has that sense, right? I just think people are tuned into it to different extents, if that makes sense.
Yeah. When I was living in Germany and I didn't speak German, I spoke like broken German. And I lived there this was right when I got there, but over the course of a couple years, I ended up living there for a total of over 2 years. And what ended up happening one day, especially early on, and I had my son who was, I don't know, maybe a year old. Because I didn't speak the language, I had to rely on other things, other instincts, other, I don't know, ways of walking through the world. And I remember one day in particular, from a spiritual place inside of me, I just said, okay, guide me today. Like, I have no idea where I need to be, what I need to do, who I need to talk to, but I know that I can just trust. I can just trust where I'm meant to be at the right moment, at the right time. And there were these moments where I literally would say, okay, if like I saw a woman, because again, I was parenting a small baby, I didn't know anyone in this town, knew 0 people. And there were a bunch of things that happened where I ended up running into a woman and she ended up becoming my best friend. We happened to be standing next to each other at like a community board because I was looking for like a baby class or a baby singing class. And then she invited me to go to it. And she ended up becoming my best friend. And now she's come to the US. We've gone to Disney World together. Like, our families hang out. So the ripple effects over the past 5 to 6 years, because of that one day where I just said, okay, guide me. I don't know where I need to stand. I don't even know how long I need to stand here. I mean, I don't know if that makes sense to people, but I just trusted whatever answer came to me every time.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Judi, what significance do you feel that one's clarity of mission, vision, and purpose have in regard to their ability to embody themselves as a leader?
I think when you have clarity in your mission and in your values, and when you can just stand so strongly in that, you don't have to worry that you'll misstep or that you'll make a mistake in your audience or you'll put out content that's not in alignment. Or I feel like there's a lot of worry about how and what you'll say out there, because again, I'm speaking from 2020 where there is cancel culture, there is a lot of tension happening. And I think there are people who are concerned with worrying about where they're going to land with their message or how it's going to be taken. And I think when you have that inner mission and purpose and you are so centered in your leadership, you have less things to worry about, bigger picture. You will always have business. You will not misstep and end up in cancel culture. I don't know if that makes sense for anyone listening, but it's a real fear out there right now that people are going to be taken the wrong way. And I think if you are in alignment, you shouldn't have as much fear in that space.
Well, I mean, to take that a step further, I think even before this year, right? Most of us are conditioned to believe that we need to try to make everybody happy, especially with high performers. There's usually an element of people pleasing, right? And if you're trying to make everybody happy, it's just a losing game because, your message, your purpose, right? That work that you're meant to do, you're not meant to help everybody. There's always going to be someone that I feel like won't approve, of something that you're putting out there. But I also think, those experiences are a learning too, right? Like they teach us how to be stronger.
Yeah, the best analogy, because when I got coaching early on in my career, early 20s, I had a business coach and he told me one of the biggest struggles you might have is wanting to be liked, which that's pretty common for people, especially in my 20s. That was not something shocking to hear, that I want to be liked. It's definitely not shocking. But he broke it down and I ended up hearing a really good analogy where there's so much music and so many artists out there. And he challenged me to say, what artist do you wish that you can't imagine if they'd never made music for the fear of one person not liking their song or their music? And of course, we can all think of somebody. There's always some artist out there that we're like, oh my gosh, I love this artist. And there's a friend in your friend group or someone in your life that's like, yeah, that artist, not so good. Or they just really hate that music or even genre of music. But they all feed into each other. There's country songs that have transitioned over, like even thinking of somebody like Taylor Swift, who started with country. And I don't know how I'm getting to this analogy here, but
keep going. It's okay.
It helped me so much to think about it like this because I struggled with, well, I'm making my own music in my business. I really am an artist. I am creating my own albums. I'm creating my own content. I'm creating my own playlist, let's just say, of my content, of my course, of my method. And like you said, there's not everyone that's going to resonate with that voice, but just like the musicians out there, there's so many musicians I would look at and say, if that musician didn't exist, I may not like their music, but they literally wouldn't have inspired an artist that I now listen to that I freaking love. So the ripple effect of all the musicians reminds me to keep going in the space I'm in. And I really appreciated that analogy when it really hit home with me because it's something I could wrap my head around.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. And so many people question, they feel guided to do something or to build something, and they look around and they don't see anyone else doing it. And so they question themselves as to whether or not it should be done. And I always challenge people to really reframe that and to think, well, what if you're meant to birth something new into the world, especially right now with all the changes that we're going through, in the world, things that have happened this year. In my mind, it's the perfect time to take that leap.
Well, and I think there's that. I agree. There's what's never been done is unseen, and you just have to trust your inner guidance and the spirit and the intuition and what you just mentioned before. What did you call it?
Clairsentience.
Yes. And I think when there's another thing that at play where sometimes what you say is similar to what somebody else says. Like, for example, you're talking about the same subject sometimes, or you are somewhat near to what somebody else is saying, but people maybe can't hear that other person or that message, and they needed you and your voice and your message. Because again, that reminds me of music. Sometimes some songs can be super similar or have the same genre, but we need both artists. We need both voices because some people can't hear the other voice.
Absolutely. What advice do you have for other conscious leaders who are feeling that call right now to make a bigger impact with their unique mission and message?
A lot of times, again, there's always something that if they're not doing it right now, there's something obviously holding them back, and I don't know what that is, but a lot of times I have found 8 out of 10 times that sometimes the action they need to take is going to create the clarity they wish they had to take that first action. It becomes the chicken and the egg. Well, I want the clarity to know how this is going to turn out and all the plans and everything. But I feel like we have to sometimes merge action with intuition and realize that we don't know, and you can put all the best plans in place. And sometimes you really do just have to take the action. You have to take one of the steps in your plan before you actually have the plan completely finished. So many people said to me, for example, oh, did you have a business plan? Or what is this marketing plan? Or, and I actually said one time to a company that I was working with, and I said, I don't like calling it a marketing plan. I like calling it a blow it up, like blow something up plan, like little harsh word there in the middle. But I wanted to I was like, you're not going to get the same results, or you're going to get the same results if you do the same things. So if you want to shake it up, I'm here to shake it up. But if you don't want to shake it up and get the same results, then I'm not your person. So I feel like we have to be willing to do something a little bit different and take an action that we wouldn't normally want to take. And that comes with the intuition and the spiritual guidance that I know you have inside of you to answer some questions that honestly, no one can answer for you. Nobody can tell you the future.
It's so true. And the programming around that can be really strong, right? Because we are, for the most part, live in a society where we're conditioned to believe that we need to seek external solutions.
Mm-hmm. Or even external validation before we implement something because we want it to work or we want buy-in. There's a lot of conversation around stakeholders and buy-in. And obviously, if you want venture capital or any type of investment money, or you have to do checks and balances, we have a very permission-based society. I want permission to move forward. And I think one of the biggest hurdles that I had to overcome inside of myself was not needing anyone's permission to do what I just knew to do today, or tomorrow, or the next day, or what I just knew that I wanted to do just because one other coach does it this way. Well, that's not how I want to run my business. I want to run my business this way. So we, at some point, have to be willing to not get anyone's permission, not get anyone's approval. When I left corporate, I was like, can somebody check my work? It was such an inner hurt. I wanted somebody to literally come over my home and be like, oh yeah, thank you. Could somebody give me an A on this paper? Because I wanted it. It was just it's hard when it's hardwired through schooling, through getting grades, through wanting to get awards, through achievement. And then all of a sudden you're out on your own business and nobody's giving you the awards. Nobody's giving you the A. You have to give it to yourself.
Yeah. Switching from that employee mindset to the entrepreneur mindset, giving yourself permission to not need permission.
That was painful. I just remember it. I remember pacing around my house and being like, somebody tell me this is my next thing. Cause it's you just want to have a boss at some point. Can I have some stakeholders? Cause I don't really feel like I have any. So.
Yep. You're your biggest advocate. That's for sure.
Yeah. And I would say it took at least 6 months being fully out of corporate again. I went in and out of corporate throughout my career after the 2008 crisis. So I had a job up to 10 years to 2008, took a leave of absence, traveled the world for a year during the crisis, got a job because of LinkedIn. That's right when I joined LinkedIn and started getting active and realized the power of networking. And fast forward, it's just been so back and forth. And I always realized, and I said, I'll never get caught without having some type of side hustle or leveling my knowledge up in a way that can serve myself. So up to a certain degree, it was leveling up my life, my network to be able to survive any job gap ever again. And that's how my first mindset started with being an entrepreneur. And then my next mindset was, I want to run my own business. So I think, taking and realizing that it can be a step-by-step process. To me, it wasn't just taking some leap and quitting my job. It really did start with the desire to learn how to position and network and market myself to get another job, not trying to figure out how to sell myself as my own business.
Judi, if someone wants to connect with you or learn more about what you're up to, where is the best place for them to find you?
The best place is my website, judifox.com, because it has all of my socials. So I have a line of socials at the top and a line of socials at the bottom. And it basically has LinkedIn, which I definitely prefer connecting on LinkedIn. But I also really enjoy Instagram and I enjoy TikTok. I have my TikTok link up there. I have all my socials. I spend some time on Pinterest, but Pinterest is more of a search and inspiration visual site, but I still love it. And yeah, all the channels are up there.
And I know that we'll have those that contact information in the show notes for our listeners as well.
Yes.
Judi, you were amazing. Thank you.
Such a good conversation. I really don't think I've had this type of conversation with anyone in a while, like real, like heart to heart, spiritual, like how you let your inner soul guide you.
It's everything. I say this often, that our mind is a faithful servant. It comes in handy for a lot of things, but it's our soul that has the blueprint for our lives.
Oh, I love that. That's beautiful.
Thank you, Judi.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Awaken on Purpose podcast. Please visit me and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or at awakenonpurpose.com so you never miss an episode. To learn more about how you can live your purpose and make an impact as a conscious leader, visit me at jenniferspoor.com, and while you're there, be sure to join my email list for exclusive offers and a weekly dose of inspiration.